Chỉ 2 viên mỗi ngày, các anh yếu đến mấy cũng khỏe, dứt điểm ngay tình trạng yếu sinh lý khó cương, giảm ham muốn, không phải lệ thuộc vào thuốc, an toàn lành tính và đặc biệt không gây tác dụng phụ.
Cái Trường Xuân Vương này là anh càng uống nó càng đầm và sức khỏe chung nó đi lên. Vì nó có tác dụng là tâm, can, tỳ, phế, thận thì nó tăng cường được cái sức khỏe chung. Chứ còn nếu mà chúng ta chỉ uống có để nó đi vào đường thận ấy thì mới chỉ là một vấn đề thôi.
Cái sản phẩm Trường Xuân Vương này từ khi tôi sử dụng thì tôi thấy sức khỏe rất tốt, chung là ngủ tốt, mà về bên đây sinh lý cũng rất tốt. Thì so với cái sản phẩm khác thì tôi thấy nó tốt rất nhiều, tốt hơn rất là nhiều.
Nhưng từ ngày ông uống cái thuốc này để là cái độ đi tiểu tiện nó ít đi. Thế thỉnh thoảng có gặp bà tí là vui vẻ, cái là ngủ là một mạch cho đến sáng luôn.
Sản phẩm Trường Xuân Vương này rất là tốt, thì tôi dùng khoảng độ được 2 tuần. Tôi thấy cảm thấy người nó khỏe khoắn ra, coi như cảm thấy đi lại với vợ nó khoan khoái hơn.
Với quan điểm nam dược trị nam nhân, các bài thuốc do bác sĩ Nguyễn Hữu Trọng nghiên cứu và điều chế hoàn toàn từ thảo dược thiên nhiên để cơ thể người bệnh tự sinh ra những chất cần thiết, chống lại sự già nua, suy giảm sức khỏe và sinh lý. Bên cạnh đó, thấu hiểu được nỗi lo lắng và sự vất vả của người bệnh trong quá trình điều trị, ông luôn đau đáu về việc làm sao để điều chế ra bài thuốc nhằm cung cấp cho người dùng tiện lợi, không phải sắc uống đỡ mất thời gian, lại đảm bảo an toàn vệ sinh tuyệt đối. Đó chính là lý do sản phẩm Trường Xuân Vương được ra đời bởi Viện Nghiên cứu Y học cổ truyền Sản phẩm hữu cơ Việt Nam do bác sĩ Nguyễn Hữu Trọng làm viện trưởng chuyển giao cho Công ty Cổ phần Phát Đạt sản xuất và phân phối, giúp hỗ trợ bổ thận, tráng dương, tăng cường khả năng sinh lý nam và hạn chế quá trình lão hóa, mãn dục nam.
Trường Xuân Vương là một sản phẩm do bác sĩ Trọng cùng các chuyên gia đầu ngành của Viện Nghiên cứu Y học cổ truyền Sản phẩm hữu cơ Việt Nam nghiên cứu từ thảo dược lành tính, không gây tác dụng phụ, cải thiện sinh lực nam một cách bền vững. Theo một cái đường dài thì tôi sẽ đi theo Trường Xuân Vương để có thể tăng cường sinh lực cho mình, giúp cho một cơ thể khỏe mạnh, cường tráng và tạo bớt đi cái áp lực công việc. Đặc biệt nữa là bí quyết có thể giữ được lửa hạnh phúc trong gia đình tôi.
Sản phẩm hỗ trợ tăng cường sinh lực khỏe mạnh trong thế giới hiện đại cũng rất là quan trọng. Tôi cũng đã biết về bác sĩ Nguyễn Hữu Trọng đã rất lâu rồi, rất ngưỡng mộ bác về cái công tác chuyên môn hàng chục năm trong lĩnh vực đông nam dược. Đây là một trong những sản phẩm cho nam giới tự tin hơn, mạnh mẽ hơn và đặc biệt là nó mạnh cả nghĩa đen lẫn nghĩa bóng.
Tôi phải cảm ơn người vợ của tôi đã tìm cho tôi được một cái sản phẩm tuyệt vời. Bây giờ tôi cảm thấy là rất là tự tin, bản lĩnh đàn ông đầy mình luôn và cuộc sống gia đình cũng rất hạnh phúc.
Thế thì sau khi sử dụng sản phẩm được hơn 1 tháng thì tôi thấy là đặc biệt là cái tình trạng yếu sinh lý của tôi đã được cải thiện rõ rệt. Thế trước kia thì hai vợ chồng quan hệ là chỉ được 4 đến 5 phút. Nhưng bây giờ là đã quan hệ khoảng độ 15 đến 20 phút. Ngoài ra các cái triệu chứng ví dụ như là tiểu đêm, tiểu dắt và đau mỏi cơ thể là hoàn toàn biến mất. Để cảm thấy là rất là phấn khởi.
Phải công nhận là cái sản phẩm này quá hiệu quả. Từ khi mà ông xã nhà tôi sử dụng cái sản phẩm Trường Xuân Vương này, ôi dồi ôi, lên vù vù, tôi thật sự choáng luôn ấy.
Sợ thật, công nhận là tuyệt vời đấy nha. Ông xã nhà tôi nha, ngày xưa chưa đi ra chợ là đã hết tiền rồi đấy. Thế nhưng mà bây giờ nha, 1 tuần được 2-3 lần và mỗi lần 15-20 phút.
Một ưu điểm ở cái sản phẩm này ấy, mà tôi tâm đắc nhất đó là có thể kết hợp dùng cùng với cả các loại thuốc được. Bà biết không, trước kia ông xã nhà tôi còn bị tiểu đường này, huyết áp này, mỡ máu này, mà còn kết hợp dùng với cả Trường Xuân Vương này, vô tư, không vấn đề gì cả. Đấy, tôi nói thật sự, cho nên cái sản phẩm này rất là công dụng.
Just to design this table, and I honestly do have to say that this table came out absolutely stunning. The specific wood species we are using for this project is called Matumi, because we always get queries internationally for all the tables we build. People always want to know what wood species we are using. So it's called Matumi, and unfortunately for all the international viewers, this is only locally sourced from South Africa. It comes more from Tanin World up all the way into Botswana, going up all the way into Africa. It's one of the most popular wood species to build epoxy tables in our country. And I honestly do have to say the design came out magnificent. Also, another tip I want to share with you guys, what I'm busy doing now, is something we normally don't record on video. And before you
So nearly finished wiring the tree, and this is about as far as I would go for now. You could wire all the branches and the tree would look a little bit better, but I think that the most important branches we wired this way. So the wire will stay on the tree for probably about 6 months, depending a little bit on how fast it grows. So instead of timing 6 months, I'll just keep a close eye out on the branches of the tree and remove the wire on branches before it starts to cut into the bark. The next step then is repotting the tree. So the tree was planted in a mostly organic soil mix with a bit of pumice, it seems, which is a good mix, especially for a tree that you still wish to develop. It will hold more water and more nutrients. And the soil mix we'll use for the tree, repotting it today, will still hold a little bit of organic matter, but not as much as right here. So for finished bonsai trees, I always recommend to use our standard soil mix of akadama, pumice and lava rock in equal parts, which is a completely inorganic soil mix that holds far less water. But like I said, for a tree like this that I still wish to develop, and a tree that I keep indoors as well, for me it just helps that it holds a little bit more water. So that's why I add a bit of organic matter. Next, we prepare the pot by covering the drainage holes with a mesh. We also attach 2 long wires, which will be used to anchor the tree to the pot firmly. As you can see here, we do prune the roots as well. Not too much, maximum about half of the root mass, and make sure that you end up with enough of those finer, smaller roots, because those are very important for the tree to sustain its health. The next step then is that we add a first layer of soil into the pot, which is the completely inorganic mix. This will help drain out water of the pot. So then we place the tree on top of that first layer, and we use the long wires prepared earlier to attach the tree to the pot. The reason we wiggle the tree a little bit is that we want to make sure that there's no air pockets between the roots.
All right, we finished. Before we're going to cast our epoxy, We just use a leaf blower because there's enormous amount of air that comes out that goes into all the small little cracks and holes that will remove the last dust particles. Now I'm just busy calculating the amount of epoxy we're going to use, and this was a really tricky calculation because there was a lot of bends, twists and turns, height differences, but at the end it's not that difficult of a calculation to make. It's really simple if you don't complicate things too much. It's a simple calculation of length times width. Going to place your slabs into the mold, always make sure to airbrush them to remove all the dust particles from your slab. Also remember to wipe your wood off because there will always be smaller dust particles that you need to remove before you're going to cast your epoxy. Now we're just busy placing all our pieces of wood into our mold we just built, and I know I'm most probably going to get some critics for this step, but we found in removing all the dust particles times height, and I will go more into detail on this in the center of this video, where I'm going to do some more explanation on a epoxy masterclass we are presenting for people that wants to start building epoxy tables. Now I'm just busy mixing my part A resin and my part B hardener together, and it's quite critical to get your ratios absolutely 100%. You don't want a mistake at this part. Another tip I want to share with you guys is in mixing your colors. The specific client asked for a transparent blue color, and it's quite critical in each batch of epoxy you're mixing that you add the exact same amount of drops in to have consistent color C. Now I'm just busy testing out our new tool in our shop, and that is a vacuum chamber. And I honestly do have to say that this changed the way we build tables. This method is literally removing all the air bubbles from your epoxy. It was quite expensive, but definitely an investment for our company. Now, busy casting the epoxy, you will see as we cast more layers after one another, you will see the colors will become darker on the blue. And another tip I want to share with you guys, in when you're going to pour your epoxy, pour it on a ridge, on an edge of your table. This will prevent more air bubbles from coming out. And another tip I want to share with you guys is that when you're casting your epoxy, cast it slowly. And as you can see, my live edges on my slabs are not sealed. Now, the way we previously done it in the past is we would seal our live edges with epoxy. We will wait for it to dry. Then we will come and scuff it and sand it up. So when we're going to cast our epoxy, that the new epoxy we're casting will bond to the edge of our slab. But we stopped using that method. Because if you think about it logically, we want the epoxy to penetrate into the wood. And thus is why we are...
The wire and helps me to set these branches in the exact position that I like them to be in. So having wired these two long branches next up with relatively thick wire, then I can wire perhaps a few of the twigs attached to those branches with smaller wire. But the rule of trying to wire two branches with one piece of wire remains the same. Only if I run out of options, I can use a wire just for one piece of branch, but then I'll have to coil it a few times around another thicker branch or the trunk. So like I said, I'll add a bit of wire now, and then the next step is repotting it, placing it with the right front in a smaller pot. The wire applied here is anodized aluminum bonsai wire. It's available in most bonsai stores, and this is the wire we use for wiring most deciduous tree species. We do wire junipers and pine trees with copper wire sometimes, just because it's a little bit stronger and more stiff. But for the softer tissue of a ficus like this, we would definitely use aluminum wire. In this shot, you can see that we coil the wire around the branch, and then in the next shot, you'll see that we'll wire with that same piece of wire the other branch. But at the trunk, we coil the wire at least once around the trunk for stability of the wire. Before continuing, I'd like to show you our brand new Bonsai Care app. The app provides tree species specific information for all your trees, and it can set smart reminders to optimize the care for your bonsai. It is available for free in the app stores.
Using this method I'm currently using. We are using a deep casting epoxy, which means I can literally cast the full depth of this table in one go. But we still prefer to cast our epoxy in layers, which takes us round about 5 to 6 days. It's winter now, so it will take round about 6 days because the epoxy takes longer to cure. And this is a massive tip I want to share with you guys in casting the next layer. As you can see, the layer I'm busy tapping now is tacky. It's like a toffee, but it's still not a liquid form. And this is absolutely the best method we found in casting the next layer of epoxy. Instead of waiting for that layer to dry and sand it and then cast your next layer, we will wait for the perfect timing once the layer you just casted becomes tacky that you cast your next layer. That bond between the two layers are absolutely the best bond you will ever get. So there's something I want to share with you guys in something we've been working extremely hard on. And that is by compiling a complete epoxy online masterclass. We get so much queries internationally of all the methods we're using. People keeps on asking us sanding methods, polishing methods, everything regarding how to build an epoxy table successfully. So we took the liberty in designing and filming a full 3-hour online course which you can watch in your own time, exactly how we manufacture and design epoxy tables. In this class, we are literally taking you by the hand and showing you from start to finish every single thing you need to know to build an epoxy table successfully. The course is 3 hours long. I am going to leave a link down in the description of this video where you can go to our website and where you can purchase this online epoxy masterclass. I think there's more than 1,000 people that already purchased the class, and we have so much positive feedback on people that started small companies, people that were so scared of working with epoxy that are so comfortable with working epoxy now, people that's making small chopping boards, people that's DIYists and hobbyists that were so afraid of working with epoxy, and now they are so comfortable with working with epoxy. Like I mentioned, this will literally show you every single thing in detail, how we manufacture and design all our tables. Check this out.
Deciding on the design of a bonsai isn't always easy, especially when a tree is as full and overgrown as this plant. Try to apply the pruning guidelines we just mentioned to your own trees. And if you are interested to learn more about these techniques, consider enrolling in one of our online bonsai courses. Here, expert teachers explain the relevant techniques, and you can ask them questions. For a free lesson, go to bonsaiempire.com/courses.
Alright, so finished pruning the tree, and like I said, I started with taking off those longer shoots, and then I started taking a bit more off. But simply reducing the length of these shoots already brings back a really nice shape of the canopy. So actually you could keep the tree like this. It doesn't really need wire. I do think it needs a smaller pot, because the tree, especially now that I pruned it, the pot is too large for this size of tree. So we'll repot next, but like I said, I like to add a bit of wire to a few of these branches to set them in position a little bit better. So I'm talking about these 2 branches, bring them down, and a few other branches as well, but not too much. So I'll show the wiring in a detail shot later, but one of the essential rules, so to say, of wiring is that it really helps to wire 2 branches of more or less the same thickness with 1 piece of wire. So that means that I'll coil the wire once or twice around the trunk, and then one end of the wire goes on this branch and the other end of the wire goes on this branch. And that will really stabilize the wire and helps me to set these branches in the exact position that I like them to be in. So having wired these 2 long branches next up with relatively thick wire, then I can wire perhaps a few of the twigs attached to those branches with smaller wire. But the rule of trying to wire 2 branches with 1 piece of wire remains the same. Only if I run out of options, I can use a wire just for 1 piece of branch, but then I'll have to coil it a few times around another thicker branch or the trunk. So like I said, I'll add a bit of wire now, and then the next step is repotting it, placing it with the right front in a smaller pot.
The wire applied here is anodized aluminum bonsai wire. It's available in most bonsai stores, and this is the wire we use for wiring most deciduous tree species. We do wire junipers and pine trees with copper wire sometimes, just because it's a little bit stronger and more stiff. But for the softer tissue of a ficus like this, we would definitely use aluminum wire. In this shot you can see that we coil the wire around the branch, and then in the next shot you'll see that we'll wire with that same piece of wire the other branch. But at the trunk we coil the wire at least once around the trunk for stability of the wire.
Remember, we don't seal our live edges, so you will always have small micro bubbles on the edge of your slab. This is why we cast in layers, because deep casting epoxy obviously takes longer to cure, and this helps us to remove 98% of all our air bubbles. Now, taking the table to one of our suppliers' shop, which he has a massive CNC machine. Now, we are obviously not in a position to purchase a CNC machine because it's truly really expensive. So for a small cost, we just take it to our supplier. It takes us around about 2 hours to flatten our table both sides. And this is the most critical step in making sure that you have a flat surface between your wood and your epoxy. Now, the way we previously done it, I think we only done it once or twice way at the start when we started manufacturing epoxy tables, is we would have done it manually with a router sled. Now, there's nothing wrong with it, but we found that it's so messy and it takes us just too much time in getting our surface flat, and that's why we don't waste our time anymore. We just pay the small fee, and doing it on a CNC machine is just way faster, and it saves us so much time in completing this project. Having the table back in my shop, we are going to start sanding with our Festool Rotex machine in the Rotex setting. Now, the Rotex setting is like a belt sander setting, but it's not as aggressive as a belt sander. This step is to remove all the CNC lines the CNC machine made. You will see on the table there's so many lines, and the 80 grit sandpaper is going to remove all those lines. This step is quite critical for the next step that's going to follow in our build. I can guarantee you that most probably by the near future, there will always be smaller things in our shop we will change just to make life easier for us and to make the design and manufacturing of building epoxy tables easier for us. And you guys do want to stick around till round about the middle part of this video, because there's a really important announcement we want to share with all the hobbyists, the DIYists, and for all the people that wants to start a company but don't know where to start. And you guys do want to stick around till the end to see how this masterpiece came out. Now, starting this week's project off, we are going to build something unique, something special, something the client asked us that they don't want a traditional epoxy river table. They wanted something different, something funky. And that's where the design part of this project was really tricky. I think we took, normally when we design epoxy tables, we will take around about half an hour to an hour to design the layout. We will send it to the client and they were happy with it. With this specific project, we took almost, I would say, estimate around about 3 hours.
Learn how to create your own bonsai trees by enrolling in one of our online bonsai courses. We explain techniques like pruning, wiring and repotting, and you can ask questions to the teachers. For the curriculums and free lessons, go to bonsaiempire.com/courses. best way to start your journey into bonsai art is to buy a starter kit and grow and train a bonsai tree yourself. This tree is a juniper plant which is about 4 years old. After pruning, wiring and repotting, this was the result. Now let's start from the beginning, by removing the top layer of soil to see where the first roots appear. We carefully lift the tree from its pot and remove loose soil using chopsticks. Now that we can see where the main roots appear, we can decide on the best front of the tree. We also take into consideration the shape and taper of the trunk and the position of the main branches. The next step is to carefully remove any dead branches, dangling growth, or dead foliage using scissors. This basic cleaning will reveal the structure of the plant, helping us in deciding how to design the tree. The next step is pruning. To create a more compact design, we remove the top of the tree using a concave cutter. This branch will be bent upwards later on and function as the new apex. Pruning is considered the most difficult part of creating a bonsai tree. Try to follow our lead, or consider enrolling in our Getting Started with Bonsai course, where we explain the process of bonsai design in great detail. For the curriculum and a free lesson, go to bonsaiempire.com/course.